All right, Nick Wright opened his mouth and decided to say that Kevin Durant to Boston has legs. I'll play the clip here, but
Two totally unrelated people, both of whom have reputations for knowing things that other people don't know, have said to me, watch out for Durant in Boston. It doesn't make, I don't know even the pieces that it would work, and it feels a lot like what Durant got killed for with Golden State before, so it doesn't make sense.
Be awesome.
But I've heard
And that
twice now.
assumption is that they don't win the championship.
I guess.
for the sake of, reading it as well so people can fully understand what Nick Wright says. Nick Wright said, I'm really interested in where he is going to go next year. I've heard from league sources who believe the potential blockbuster trade is on the table. Or that is what he said. There's odd Boston talk with Durant that I don't totally understand. That's a weird one. He said, I'm not Brian Windhorst. I'm not putting my fingers up, but I will say two totally unrelated people, both of whom have reputations for knowing things people know, have said to me, watch out for Durant to Boston. I don't know even if the pieces would work, and it feels a lot like Durant getting killed for Golden State, and so it doesn't make sense, but I've heard that twice now. And you know what? Just to wrap in, foolishness into one video, I'll take it a step further, because Colin Cowherd today decided to say that the Celtics should trade for Giannis. And that was a bit on his show today. So let me tell you exactly what that was. I'll play the clip here now as well.
The Boston Celtics have a lot of guys they got to pay. They've got two guys who are similar in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. We just saw Dallas say, give us Anthony Davis. It'll give us a chance. We get a star, we lose one. We don't want like 6 first-round picks. What if the Boston Celtics said, we'll give you Jaylen Brown and Derek White, Holiday, and a pick. Give us Giannis. And then the Celtics going forward would have a Giannis, Jason Tatum nucleus.
But basically, I don't think it was actually Colin Cowherd who brought it up, but it was a guest on his show who brought it up. And said, what if the Celtics just traded Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and Drew Holiday for Giannis? And then you had Tatum and Giannis, which just there's so many things that are not legal about that. First of all, Celtics second apron team, you can't trade 3 pieces for one. You're just not allowed. You can't aggregate salaries in a trade. 2, you could say, oh, well, what if they get under? So then you would require them to make that trade work, to trade Porzingis first, and then trade Brown, White, and Holiday for Giannis. And then wrapping all the way back to the Durant thing, again, since the Suns are also a second apron team, the Celtics would have to get under the second apron so they could aggregate salaries to trade for Durant, which would include Jaylen Brown, or the Suns would have to trade Bradley Beal first. Neither of these trades make sense. And that's without even discussing the fact that they don't make sense from a roster building and future perspective for the Celtics. So it's just been a week of nonsense on the airwaves.
Yeah, the Giannis one, just to start there, neither team does that.
Unbelievable.
Like, what is
right?
in that for Milwaukee? Nothing.
I don't know if this, I don't know the exact scenario. I need to find the clip again.
Then you'd be
if
stuck
Giannis
with
asks
Dame.
out. If Giannis asks out is the bit. I don't even know who this dude is.
All
So,
right, sure.
regardless.
I mean,
he was
Giannis
on the Colin
asks out,
Cowherd show.
Then you're stuck with Dame and Derek White and Drew and Jaylen. So you're extremely small after being massive with Giannis playing the 4 next to Brook Lopez. But okay, going back to KD. The KD one, I think, has people talking about it more because as somebody that's in the position that we're in, I could look at it and be like, sure, I could see why. I could see why they would do that. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think it's the kind of thing that all of us should be rooting for. But if the Celtics are in the business of cheaping out, Kevin Durant's contract only goes through the end of next season. If they're terrified of the Jaylen contract and they really don't like it, then they can get off the Jaylen contract, send it to Phoenix, but they would have to have other things move around beforehand. Like the second apron is handcuffing both of these teams, not just one of them. So Phoenix would have to get underneath the second apron in order to trade Kevin Durant for Jaylen straight up because they'd be taking more salary back than they're
Or the
sending out.
Celtics would have to get under the
Or the Celtics would have to slide pieces ahead of that, like you mentioned with Porzingis or Holiday or whoever it is that's going to put them under the second apron. But that's the only way is if they're terrified of the Jaylen contract.
And 2 things, and this is I know you're not saying this, but just like hypothetical, I'm going to ask you this because asking you this to ask the audience this: has there been any even inkling of indication the Celtics are terrified of the Jaylen contract? No,
Not externally.
Not,
No.
not at all. Nothing that we've heard. 2, if you were to trade for Kevin Durant, let's say like because in like straight up the actual trade terms, it would be Jalen for KD. Would you trade Jalen and Drew for KD or Jalen and KP for KD? No. And in total, that's what it would have to be, unless the Suns could find a way to dump the Bradley Beal contract, which maybe over the summer they can find a way to do that, and then you would be able to just do Jalen for KT. Well, actually, I don't even know if you would be able to, because who makes more money? I would need to see who makes more money.
Jalen makes more money than KD
Okay,
does.
then you could legally do that, but that's ridiculous. And then the Giannis thing. Oh my God, Colin Cowherd show has been turned into like, it's always been one of the worst, but oh my God, like beyond the normal, like that doesn't make sense for the Celtics, because why would the Celtics trade 3 rotation pieces for Giannis? And don't get me wrong, Giannis and Tatum for the next X amount of years would be great, right? Giannis is a phenomenal basketball player. You'd have 2 of the top 3, top 5, whatever you want to call it, players in the NBA on your roster. That's incredible. Your depth would be cooked, right? And also, it's literally not a legal trade. You cannot do it. The Celtics cannot trade 3 players for 1 under the second apron. They would have to trade Porzingis first. So then you would be asking yourself, okay, should the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis for Giannis? Are you stupid? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand what goes through these people's mind. Like, they just go on the air and are allowed to say whatever they want. Let's live in the fucking bubble world. Let's live in Oz, where Glinda comes down from the bubble. It's a wicked reference. Sorry. And this is the lineup, right? Your starting lineup would be Peyton Pritchard, Baylor Shireman, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Al Horford if he doesn't retire, and then off the bench, Luke Cornett.
I think we're giving the Giannis thing too much.
And what
much
else?
air.
I just think it's so stupid. But even
there's
the KD
nothing
thing,
to that.
even the KD
The
thing,
KD thing, there's more to.
I don't think there is. I think it's still stupid. It's obviously not as stupid, but like,
just for perspective, I'm looking at the Phoenix second apron like threshold. They're $11 million above the second apron. So in order for them to be more flexible making trades, they would have to shed $11 million in salary. Next season on the books, they'll have Grayson Allen making 16, and they'll have Royce O'Neal making 10, and then they could get off of maybe one of the Osha Ighodaro or Ryan Dunn's if they really want to do this.
Get rid of one of the only 2 promising pieces on your roster.
There's also Cody Martin, who makes 8.
Sure.
And Nick Richards, who makes 5.
Then let me ask you a question.
If they're really married to it, they could move off of them.
If you're the Celtics, would you rather just trade one of Drew or KP for smaller contracts and like fine rotation pieces, and that's how you get under the salary, or trade Jaylen Brown for 2 years of Kevin Durant and also trade Jaylen Brown for 1 year of Kevin Durant? What would you rather do?
I think in the short term, I'd rather do the Jaylen for Durant, because if you really believe in it, maybe you do the Holiday thing, but why? I feel like if you move off of Holiday in particular, I think you're going to have to maybe give up other stuff to go along with him with that money. And if you don't believe that, that's fine. Why? But then if you give up, why? Because he hasn't.
You think Holiday's a negative value contract?
I think he's like borderline. Like, this is not the time to trade him. He hasn't been spectacular.
I don't think he's like positive value contract, but I don't think you're attaching pieces to get off of him.
Probably not a lot. Like, I'm not saying you have to like give up the farm to get rid of him, but like, if I'm a team, like, this is not like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to be propositioned about Drew Holiday. To go back to Durant, if you're the Celtics and you're afraid of the money, and you get the 1 year of paying KD $54 million instead of paying Jaylen the 60 or whatever.
Are you afraid of the money?
No, it's not my money. I don't give a fuck. You know me.
Then put yourself in not Sam lens for a second and ask yourself.
Well, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, fine.
If I'm afraid of the money, Jaylen is making the Supermax for I think 3 more years after next. So Durant's contract will be over at $54 million. Maybe you convince yourself that you can talk him into taking like not exactly an Al Horford deal, but a deal that is more team friendly than Jaylen's $60 million. So essentially, if KD is like, I will re-sign for $30 million a year, maybe you're happy with that.
Listen, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the same team has you capable of competing for championships for the next 10 years.
I agree.
So why trade that for 1 year of Kevin Durant?
Well, maybe you hope it's more than one, but it's definitely not going to be 10.
But yeah, then why? That's the part that like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
how do you feel about Jaylen this season?
I understand he's probably a little bit overpaid by the nature of who he is versus the type of contract he garners. That doesn't matter. Like, if you have those two on your roster, and you can financially have those two on your roster and build a competent team around them, it doesn't matter. Like that's the whole thing. You shouldn't be afraid of the Jaylen contract because of how great a team you can build with two guys who can draw to and kick out to 3-point shooters as these guys, right? Because you still have the Pritchard contract for X amount of more years. You still have the Hauser contract for X amount more years. You have Shireman now who's turning into something pretty good. Like, you can find pieces to build around them. And not only can you find pieces to build around them, you can develop pieces to build around them. Look at what Cornette's turned into. Look at what Baylor Shireman's turned into in the first year of like you looking at his development. Like, it doesn't make any sense to cheap out and short term that way when you can just trade. And that's without me even mentioning Derek White, who's under contract for X amount more years. When you can just trade Drew Holiday for, even if you have to attach a second or couple seconds to it, get a couple decent rotation pieces back that you can maybe develop into those types of guys, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And there's no reason to be afraid of the Jaylen contract in the context of, if you have Tatum and Brown, you can compete for championships. Point blank, period. I don't like, it doesn't matter if he's a little bit overpaid. You have two of the best players in the league. That's it. Like, that's what you need. So I think all this talk is stupid. I think Nick Wright doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think the honest thing is even worse. And you're right, probably not even worth discussing. I just, another stupid thing I saw. But regardless, I think the Kevin Durant stuff doesn't make any sense, not only financially, but practically from the Celtics perspective. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't favor it. But if they did it, I would be like, oh, I guess this is what they want. Like,
if they did it, like, sure, fine. Like, I think KD's a phenomenal player. It'd be fun. But I don't think it makes any sense. And I don't think that's something that Brad Stevens will look at and say, yeah, you know, I don't like the money I paid Jaylen 2 years ago when all we've done since we paid him is win a fucking championship. It's stupid. Like, if they had lost last year and aren't in a good position this year, then yeah, I get it. But like, it's not what happened. So.
Yeah, and just to tie a bow on it, the KD money next year doesn't save you from whatever penalties you're running from this summer. Like, that's been the talk. Like, Wick went on the radio, was like, we're afraid of the basketball penalties. Well, if you manage to get all of the dominoes to fall where both teams were legally allowed to do that, you'd only be saving $6 million from a Boston perspective. With that move alone, you probably still would have to move off of one of the other guys.
Yep. It just doesn't make any sense. Let us know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe. I'll let Sam take it out.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening and watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you think of the whole KD. I guess like it's back. It was here like 3 years ago. Now it's back again. The KD saga with the Celtics. He's just like consistently been tied to this team and will probably never end up here. You could leave a like and comment, and like I just said, and hit the bell. We're here every single day. New content comes out at 5 a.m. You can find full pods Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, game recaps morning after each game. And other videos are on the channel in between, like this one, to keep you up to date with all things Celtics. You can find us on Spotify and Apple too. All of our pods and recaps are up there. So if you just want the audio versions, go ahead, follow. Leave a 5-star review. Tell your friends. We'd appreciate that. You can email us, hbtcpod@gmail.com, if you have lengthier thoughts on KD. Go ahead, send them in. We'll talk about it. Why not? hbtcpod@gmail.com. Our socials are at How About Them C's for Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Facebook's just the name of the podcast. All streams are there. They're on YouTube. They're on Twitter. Jack's Twitter's at JacksOneNBA. Mine's at Sam LaFrance NBA. That's it for us. Bye.
Taco, come on. Taco's